So I thought what we might do this morning is have a chat to Heston Russell, no stranger to anyone who listens to this show, a retired Special Forces Major and founder of Voice of a Veteran, and I'm delighted to say he's on the line. How are you, Heston?
Hey, good morning. Good. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's good to talk to you. So the day's finally come, August 31. What do you think about this day? And more importantly, your brothers, how might they feel about this day?
I mean, this day isn't anywhere near as symbolic as what's been sort of happening over the last couple of weeks. It's just another date, but it just sort of is another compounding factor to what has been a extreme disappointment to the end of Australia's longest campaign, that has shown so many fractures and fault lines in so many levels, from our strategic impotence in following through with the good work that our servicemen and women have done on the ground, through to the way in which we aren't there even now, as our US and British and even New Zealand counterparts are still there on the ground looking to get those people we have a moral responsibility for out off the ground, whereas we are not there.
Yeah. You founded Voice of a Veteran. What about those people that have to, witness this and also the trial by media? I mean, you all took such great risk, but the impact, mental health impact must be, I hope I'm not over-egging this, I'm genuinely concerned, must be more than significant.
Yeah, absolutely. So I founded Voice of the Veteran campaign for the Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide, which was called in July. And since then, we've turned into the organisation, Veteran Support Force, vsf.org.au, that any Australians can join to support our veterans and their families. It's now a recognised charity with DGR status. And look, what's been going on is it's absolutely spiked. And it spiked due to the issues that were ongoing with the veterans' mental health crisis, through to COVID, through to now the bungled withdrawal. Myself and my colleagues are still supporting Australian interpreters and the families of Australian citizens who are still there in Kabul, some who were outside the Kabul airport when those blasts went off and are now being told that the Australian government is not going back to collect them. We are liaising with our US brethren on the ground, and we are speaking with them to support them. Through to this week and even today yesterday with reports in the media attacking some of those memories of our loved ones, with attacks on SAS personnel, with attacks even now on commandos, with allegations that were meant to be saved just for the Burton report and now passed on for investigation, are being played out in a trial by media, as it's clear that agendas are being played out, and veterans and their families who can't speak out because they're still serving the Defence Force, who don't want to speak out because, as we're now seeing on our televisions, the very real threat of these insurgents and these terrorists that are over there, and people like myself who speak out, like, this is real world stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not hiding behind a keyboard or Walkley Awards. I'm putting myself out there saying I was there and I took the fight and I killed insurgents, and now are trying to stand up when defence is not standing out and defending our people when they're meant to be allowed their day in court.
I think the Defence Minister, Peter Dutton, might have apologised to 13 personnel the other day. It just seems like we haven't gone far enough. There does appear, and look, I wasn't at any point in my life, I'm a little on in years now, but in any point in my life brave enough to put on the uniform and go and serve. I think that takes a special individual, and it seems to me like it's just so unfair. Sections of the media that seem to have some kind of, issue with people that have served. I know it's not perfect, but I reckon without being there, it would have been the most abysmal of circumstances, and you're presented with a range of choices, none of which any of us would ever be faced with. And to think it's just, you can sail through and at the end say, oh, how good, we saved A or B or C, and we didn't have to do, F or G or H. I mean, that's a fantasy world, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's one thing that has to come out of this lesson learned, and I'm going to be pushing with all of our friends in politics to look to have some form of legislation made so as this can never happen again. War allegations and war crimes absolutely have to be pushed through to the rule of law and the presumption of innocence, but these aren't ordinary circumstances. Servicemen and women can't stand out of the defence rank and file and defend themselves. So we have an organisational and a national obligation to afford these people all the circumstances they can to have the everyday rights of everyday citizens.
Yep.
And just like what has occurred, we had an inquiry. The way that was released was terrible, and the impacts of that we're still feeling today. But now there is an Office of the Special Investigator being paid for by taxpayers' money. Why is the government, and I know on both sides, stepping out to say, hey, these are going to be pressed through to these people having their day in court? Stop. This is affecting us nationally and strategically. Veterans and their mental health and those of the fallen loved ones are being torn back through allegations that don't bear any information that's been carried through to be credible, but are still having to defend themselves and can't. They're calling me and they're calling my organisation to defend themselves. And we pride ourselves on having a fair go and standing by each other. But if this is the way we treat our servicemen and women, even after, all this has unfolded and people are finally seeing what we're up against over there overseas, why would young Australians want to join up to see how we're going to be persecuted even after service back here at home?
Brilliant point. That is a brilliant point. I note the leaders of 100 countries say they've received assurances from the Taliban that all foreign nationals and any Afghan citizen with authorisation will be allowed to leave the country. Do you accept that? Do you accept that Taliban might end up being, to some extent, a good guy in this area?
How? How are they going to leave the country? I'm talking to a family who was hiding in Kabul because the father used to work for NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation, that we went into Afghanistan 2005 to 2014. I'm being told to tell him to get to the Pakistan border. He can't catch an Uber. He has to get through Taliban checkpoints. They're looking for people like him. And as opposed to this media and these reporters putting all their effort into discredit the memory of those fallen loved ones, fallen veterans, and a song that used to be played and interpreted in a way that has been demonstrated inaccurately in the media, they should be over there providing the international accountability that needs to be held to these Taliban to follow through on these statements. When we can't do that as military forces, this is where the media, especially the taxpayer-funded media, could actually be force multiplying and supporting those Australians and those we're responsible for. I don't know how these people are going to get to that border. We don't know how we're going to prove if the Taliban are going to follow through with that. And I'd love to see how we could do and work on that together. But it's just, there's all these grand statements, all this box ticking, all this flag waving. But for those on the ground who are communicating with the Department of Foreign Affairs through an email, they are facing the most uncertainty that we can't even imagine back here. And it's the lives of their families and their loved ones.
Yeah. When you hear that all that armoury was left behind by the US, helicopters, planes, small arms in the tens and tens of thousands, that's no way to withdraw, and I'm not even a quarter of an expert in that area. How does that make you feel?
As a military professional, that's the part that hurts me the most. When I was over there fighting in 2012 and then again in 2015, we were able to attribute them down to some very basic sort of equipment and weaponry. And we have literally left that place more well-armed than when we first got there. And we're not just talking about Afghanistan. We're talking about the Middle East. We're talking about porous borders. We're talking about advanced weapon systems, night fighting equipment, body armour. We're talking about very real threats that we now have to look to track and counter as our country opens up again, as Australians look to travel overseas. These are the real-world implications of all of this, If a single Australian or US soldier had have lost one piece of equipment, they would be charged and some of them might have been kicked out of the military. And I think we've lost $86 billion worth of equipment behind to arm the Taliban and whoever else is involved in this power struggle. And that, for me, again, as a military professional, is one of the biggest disappointments of this whole situation.
How do we help Voice of a Veteran, your organisation, mate?
Please, look, any Australians, get along to vsf.org.au, vsf.org.au. We are in the moment looking to put together a motion and a petition to call on the government on both sides to please support and end this trial by media, to reinforce the rule of law and presumption of innocence, and to really help to support our veterans and their families, particularly as we are doing our main role, which is helping them provide their submissions and engage with this Royal Commission into defence and veteran suicide. So anyone who would go along and join up, it's free. We're all about noise and numbers. We need people's inputs so people can actually show their support and help us to achieve what we need to achieve to get action from our politicians.
vsf.org.au. If we can help with the noise, mate, at any time, let us know. Thanks for your service and thanks for what you're doing now, mate.
Hey, thank you so much. And these conversations really do make the difference. So I really do appreciate it.
That's Heston Russell.